Hey, it's Tristan here from ZebraInvest, and today I'm sitting down with Daisy Hill from Dots Design and Planning. She's a gamekeeper turned poacher. So it's the planner who was trying to stop you getting your stuff through. Well, she says she was trying to help you get it through, but we know that's not the case. And now she's actually trying to help people get planning permission through. So Dave, one of the questions I was thinking about asking and talking about was pre-apps. Are they worth it? Is there any benefit to it? And if you actually have a planner out on site, walking around and talking to you, what kind of questions should you be asking them? Can you get them to kind of commit to anything? Why would you bother using them? Or do you just use a planning consultant instead? So, is a pre-application worth it?
Again, probably another $1 million question. If it's quite an open and shut case, so people will come to me with something and I can pretty much say, you're going to be absolutely fine with this, or these are the issues we're going to overcome, but actually in principle you're fine, let's just go straight to application, no need for a pre-app. That being said, sometimes clients want to do a pre-app. It's that extra level of confirmation in writing that we're heading in the right direction. I'm always led by the client on that. I'll always say we can do a pre-app if you want. If not,
and sometimes just show your cards a little bit, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go.
I don't think that's an issue. I think that being really open and honest and transparent when you're going to put an application in anyway isn't a bad thing. I would say with a pre-app, it's almost like going to the doctors. So if you go to the doctors and you say, I've got a sore throat, they're going to sort of only be able to go on what you tell them. Yeah. So a good pre-app, you really need to include in it as much detail as you can. So even if it's sketch plans, even if it's ideas about the height of a building, how many bedrooms, the parking. Basically, I like to front load my pre-apps so they look like an application. One, also, that saves time when you come to the application because you've done all the work up front.
Well, we're happy with your pre-application, and you're
Absolutely.
Like, pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and passing that cost on to the client. If you've done the work in the pre-app stage, I'll often say to people, well, we're kind of ready to put it in now, and I've done all the work, so there's really not a lot more I need to do. But there's no point putting a pre-app in, paying X amount of, hundreds of pounds for it, and saying, can I put a 3-bedroom property here on this site? There's nothing to go on. The response you get won't be helpful. So I'm a great fan of them, but you've got to ask the right questions.
So you really think they are a benefit to use them then?
Absolutely. I would say I use them more often than not, and clients seem to like them. So. Yeah.
I think if you are doing work on your own house or whatever else, you just want that confidence that we are heading in the right direction, and the money we're about to spend on doing everything. It's, as we all know, as a property investor, it's not just initial money on getting the research done. Then after that, you've got your technical drawings, you've got everything else to work through, and all the different back surveys under the sun to try and get yourself around. But I think one thing that people do forget though is actually, as a planning officer, you're there to help, and you trying to get something to move forward, and you're not trying to say no. And then actually you've come from a background of actually probably enjoying architecture, and that's why you would have studied or ended up in that in that instance in the first place, not just a P off and B, so when if you do have a planning officer around for your pre-application, what kind of questions do you try and ask them that to kind of help encourage your application forwards?
I think probably not expecting them to say too much is a good place to start, because I know that when I was working, as an authority planning officer, people hang off your every word. So you've got to be quite careful what you say. And I think, sometimes general public think that planning officers are being quite vague and non-committal, but actually you often have to go see a site, take it all in, then go back and kind of look at what's gone before, what's around it, what's the policy saying. So I would say actually my best advice is just let them come and look. Ask all the questions you want to ask, but be prepared that they might not be able to answer them there and then. I always follow them up with an email. But equally, if it is quite an open and shut case, a good planning officer should be able to quite confidently say, you're going to have no problem with this in principle. But I think and I'll be really honest, this is from my experience, a lot of planning officers are too afraid to maybe say you're going to be fine.
But take something or someone else or something else changes it.
Whereas I think actually, if it's fine in principle, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be issues down the line, but you can kind of give a steer on principle. Yes, policy-wise, we can support this as an authority, but I'm a bit concerned about this, and this is what I'm going to have to reflect on. So yeah, it really depends on the officer as well, to be honest.
So do you think it's a better idea just to use a planning consultant from the offset?
Well, I suppose that's where I come in, and I am almost a bit of a translator, because I probably translate, what the policy is and what the planning officer is likely to be thinking, feeling, looking at, to the client. So, and I know the questions to ask. I used to be that person that made the decision. I used to look at stuff against the policies. So, I often say that's a bit of my superpower. I know how a planning officer thinks because I used to be one. So yeah, and I'm also really realistic. I know when they're going to have an issue with something. I can foresee that because I would have had an issue with it. So whilst you don't need a planning consultant necessarily, I think we are very good at bridging that gap and translating what that means, and vice versa. So.
Right. And then one of the questions I had, and I thought, and I think actually you answered this quite neatly. So I used to work for a company called Poshpads down in Southampton. And one of my questions was going to be, can a pre-application kind of prevent you achieving planning? And I think you touched on it earlier, and it's actually, if you've got a really ill-prepared pre-application, or it doesn't have enough detail in there, or they don't understand what you're trying to do, and the answer is probably yes.
I disagree.
If you've got a poor one,
I think it's a question of you might have peed them off. So if you've put something in, no, not you. If you've put something in that's absolutely horrendous, if they then get an application, they're going to be thinking, oh, blooming hell, it's Tristan, he put that shocker of a pre-app in. So they're probably a little bit preconditioned to think, oh, this is going to be another pile of poo. I'm a great believer. I used to take every application on its own merit, and I would get stuff from various different architects who've done some good, some bad. But you have to forget that. You have to just look at what you've got in front of you, and also politics can't come into it. So some developers like to push it. And actually, they could put a really decent application in, but if you've got some beef with them, that shouldn't affect it. It really, really shouldn't. So I don't think the standard of the pre-app will stop you getting the planning, but you can always change it. You can improve it. I think
that's what we had. We put in this really. I thought it was really nice. We had this massive house, and we converted it so it had. Across the top floor, it had 3 bedrooms where it had 2 before, and it had a massive bathroom and a utility room. But the problem they thought was that our window that we were putting in wasn't big enough and wouldn't act as a window. But I think what the challenge was, and that was actually what they came down to when we put our main application, and we actually had to go to appeal because they never actually came out to site to see the window. And then we actually just sent them a photo of it, and they're like, actually, we're quite happy with this. But I think it was one of those bits, if we'd actually detailed that in the first place, they just thought we were putting in a tiny little Velux window that was pointed at a weird angle. And when they actually came to site, they were like, well, that's the same as any normal window. They were quite happy with it. But anyway.
Site visits are really key as well, I'd say. Really? So important. Absolutely.
Well, I have found that planning officers almost don't seem to want to come out to site a lot of the time now. I might be wrong.
I think it's because they're worried they're going to get hassled by the applicants. I sometimes used to do a bit of a sneaky drive-by site visit because I was worried that, especially if it's someone's home, that they've effectively put their life and their plans and their dreams in your hand. So undoubtedly they're going to be thinking, oh, do you like it? Are you going to approve it? It's a really emotional process. So planning officers, we're sort of secret agents at times. I've done many late at night and driven by and hung out the window to take photos, but it's not because we don't want to do them. It makes it easier for both parties sometimes. So yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Daisy, for that. So if anyone's got any comments or questions about this, just drop them in below on the video. Hopefully you've liked this video. And we've got a couple more videos coming up as well. So if you want to subscribe to this channel to hear and see any more of us talking through planning with Daisy, be my guest. I'll catch you later, guys.